YouTube, how is it going? Roughneck81 here. Today I'm coming at you with a Season 3 weapons guide video. I was wanting to do this for Season 2, but due to some technical difficulties I was unable to do so, so I'm going to hit you on with Season 3. And boy have the loadouts changed in just one season. We've got three main types of loadouts that a lot of people are running right now. Long range AR SMG, long range AR, short range AR, and short to mid AR and sniper. Those are kind of your three main loadouts that are being run right now by the players in Warzone. With all the weapon changes and buffs and nerfs that came about with the beginning of Season 3, a lot of the main guns that people have been using got changed up a bit. For example, your M16 you used to use all the time, or maybe your AUG, those got nerfed pretty hard. So now you're looking for what to run now. Well, I've got it right here for you. Today we're going to be covering the first type of loadout that a lot of people are running, long range AR and SMG. So we're going to get into the top 5 long-range ARs and the top 3 SMGs that you should be running right now. So before we get into the video, don't forget, like and subscribe if you found it helpful. Make sure to check me out on all my other channels. We got my Facebook group, Roughneck81, Stream HQ, my Twitch, twitch.tv/Roughneck81, and Instagram, Roughneck81. Also, before we get started, I want to remind y'all, definitely go to check out ArrayGaming.com. I'm an affiliate with those guys. And they've got some great gaming apparel that everybody needs to go check out. If you do happen to get something from their store, use the discount code Roughneck81. You'll get 10% off your purchase. All right, with all that being said, let's jump right into it. So like we talked about in the intro, you're going to be running three main types of loadouts. Your first type is going to be your AR SMG. Your second type is going to be your long-range AR with a short-range AR. And your third type is going to be a medium to short-range AR paired with the sniper. So the first major group we're going to go over today is going to be our long-range ARs. But coming in at number 5, I actually have the Modern Warfare M4A1. Now this is a gun that's been pretty steady throughout its entire time here in Modern Warfare. Haven't really received very many nerfs or buffs to this gun. Now the M4 does a little less damage than the Krig, which is what a lot of people have been using now recently. But it's also got a pretty easy recoil to be able to control. Of all the ARs we're going to be going over today for long range, the M4A1 has the highest fire rate. It's tied for the highest bullet velocity. It has a good TTK, or time to kill, under 29 meters. After that 29 meters, it receives a little damage drop off and has the second slowest TTK amongst the ARs we're going over today. Now the reason fire rate and bullet velocity are really important, when you have a really fast fire rate, essentially what that means is it's more forgiving if you miss some shots. The higher fire rate a gun has, the quicker it's going to get bullets out. So if you turn on an enemy and you miss your first couple initial bullets, if a gun has a fast fire rate, you're going to get more bullets out quicker, and therefore it's more forgiving if you miss a few shots. The reason bullet velocity is so important is that's what's going to determine your bullet drop and how much you need to lead your enemies when shooting at them from a distance. So for a long-range AR, a bullet velocity is actually a pretty important stat. So if we're looking at the loadout for my M4A1, you're going to use the monolithic suppressor, you're going to use the stock M16 Grenadier barrel, the Commando foregrip underbarrel, the 60-round mag ammo, and the VOK 3x optic. If you feel like you can control the recoil good enough, you can switch out the underbarrel for even like a tac laser, which can increase your ADS time. But as you're going to be using this gun as a long-range AR, ADS isn't quite as important as how steady your aim is, so I would just stick with the underbarrel. Next up for our long-range ARs, we're going to be taking a look at the FLORIN. Now this is a gun that was added to the game a little while ago, but really didn't receive a whole lot of attention, mostly because when compared to guns that did about the same amount of damage, the FLORIN actually ended up having a lot more recoil than the rest of them did. With the major Season 3 updates, they reduced the recoil on this gun considerably, and now have made it an extremely viable option to use in the current meta. This gun can be used long range or even as a short to mid range rifle, which we'll go over that particular loadout here later on in the video. Amongst the ARs today, the FLORIN has the second highest fire rate, but also a very low bullet velocity. So essentially, if you miss your first few initial shots, that fast fire rate will kick in and help compensate for that. However, with the lower bullet velocity, you will have to slightly lead your targets a little bit more with this gun. Good news is, in both short and longer ranges, this AR has the second highest TTK, falling only behind the AMAX. Now for my long-range FLORIN loadout, I've got the GRU suppressor, the Spetsnaz RPK barrel, the Spetsnaz Speed Grip underbarrel, the Spetsnaz 50-round magazine, and the SUSAT multi-zoom optic. Now the two components of this loadout I really want you to look at is one, the type of underbarrel I'm using. If you look here, a lot of people will automatically pick the Spetsnaz grip, which helps with your vertical and your horizontal recoil. If you want to go with this, that's also a good option. However, as this gun already has pretty easy recoil to compensate for, I would actually throw on the Spetsnaz Speed Grip, as this can increase your sprint time and make you a little more mobile with this gun. As far as the optic goes, most people usually nowadays are defaulting to the Axial Arms 3x scope, which I've actually used myself on a lot of guns. However, after testing with the SUSAT multi-zoom a little bit, I find that there's actually a lot less recoil action that you see within the optic when firing the gun with this optic as opposed to the Axial Arms 3x. What I mean by that is when you're firing your gun, you'll notice that your optic kind of bounces back and forth while you're shooting. I tend to find that more distracting with the Axial Arms 3x than I do with the SUSAT multi-zoom. Plus, you have the added benefit of switching between the 2 and the 4x magnification with the SUSAT than you do just leaving it the 3x with the Axial. This can be a preference thing, but I would suggest trying the SUSAT multi-zoom if you haven't and see how that feels to you. Now, coming in at number 3 on the list, I have the Growl. Like the M4A1, this is another staple classic coming from Modern Warfare. With its super easy recoil and very fast fire rate, this gun is still a very viable option today, especially now when the meta of long-range ARs is so convoluted. This gun is an absolute beam. Personally, of all the guns that are on this list, this has absolutely the lowest recoil and in my opinion is the easiest to use. Now the trade-off to that is this gun is not going to necessarily do the most damage. But another added benefit with this gun is that you could actually run this as a long-range AR with or without a scope. The iron sights on this gun are very clean, and considering the recoil is so low, you could actually be hitting people from an extremely long distance with an iron sights and feel just as comfortable. The fact of having a scope on the top is just what's going to give you your increased zoom and be able to actually see people farther off. The Growl has an above average fire rate with a very high bullet velocity. Those two combination of things mean that you're going to get bullets on them extremely quickly and be compensated if you miss the first few initial shots. And the high bullet velocity means that you're not going to have to lead your targets nearly as much, even if they're running from side to side at a very long distance. The TTK under 31 meters is actually in the average to above average range, but past 31 meters, this gun actually has the lowest TTK amongst all the ARs we've been talking about here. But remember, the point of this gun is not that it's going to put out a whole bunch of damage. The point of this gun is that it experiences an extremely low recoil. While the bullets may not be doing as much damage as a bullet from, say, the AMAX or the Krig, you're not going to miss with this gun. Whereas the other guns that put out more damage, if you're not hitting their shots with them, their TTK is going to drop considerably. Now the loadout for the Growl, you can change a few things up here. The staples for it are definitely going to be the monolithic suppressor muzzle. The barrel, you're going to use the Tempest 26.4 Archangel barrel. Your ammo, you're going to run the 60 round mag. And for your fourth attachment, you can kind of go back and forth. You can either run the Underbarrel Commando foregrip, which is going to make your recoil control even better than it already is, or you could switch that out with a tack laser to increase your ADS time. As far as your optic goes, typically you'll run the VOK 3x optic. This is kind of what everybody runs. Here recently, I've been playing around with the Cronin C480 Pro optic. Whereas the VOK is a 3x optic, the Cronin is actually a 3.5x optic. So you're going to get a slightly more enhanced zoom with this optic. So again, when it comes to optics, this is more of a preference thing. But typically, I would stick with either the Cronin or the VOK 3x. Next up, number 2 on the list, we have the Krig. Now this AR recently received a buff in the Season 3 update. Essentially what they did was they increased its damage multiplier, meaning when a weapon hits on the chest as opposed to an extremity like the arms or legs, it's going to do an increased amount of damage. Well, that multiplier that tells the game how much more damage it does depending on what part of the body you're hitting was increased for the Krig. Meaning it's going to put out more damage the more accurate you are with this gun when it comes to hitting chest and headshots. And the good news is this gun was already pretty accurate when it comes to its level of recoil that it had. With the increase to the damage that it does now, this becomes an extremely viable option in the current meta. When you're looking at the stats for the Krig, it has a pretty low fire rate, meaning you need to be accurate with this gun. But again, it has a fairly easy recoil. You should be able to hit most of your shots, so the fire rate isn't that big of a deal. However, it does have a fairly low bullet velocity, so again, it's a good thing this gun already has fairly low recoil because you're going to definitely need to be leading your targets slightly more than maybe with another gun. Its TTK is good. It's right in the average range when it comes to comparing it to the rest of these ARs. But again, what you're looking for here is the fact that this is a gun that while it doesn't have as low a recoil as say your M4A1 or your Growl, it's still very manageable, and it does have a better TTK than both of those guns do. So if you're able to handle the very, very slightly more difficult recoil on this one than compared to the M4A1 or the Grau, this would definitely be a good gun to use. Now, if you're looking at the loadout for this gun, we're going to have the agency suppressor muzzle. For the barrel, we're going to use the takedown barrel. What this is going to do is give us an increase to our effective damage range. The base distance drop-off for damage on this gun is 38 meters, meaning after 38 meters, the amount of damage each bullet does is going to drop lower. With this takedown barrel, it's going to increase that distance, and it's going to do more damage farther out before it actually hits that drop-off point. Your underbarrel is going to be the field agent grip. It's going to help control your horizontal and vertical recoil. You're in the 60-round mag. And like I mentioned previously, for the FARA, you can bounce around between either using the SUSAT multi-zoom or the axial arms 3 times. Finally, our last gun on the list is going to be the AMAX. This is actually my personal favorite gun right now, and is by far and away the #1 choice in weapons when it comes to the long-range AR meta. However, one thing to note about this gun and the FARA as well, both of these guns, as mentioned previously, have a chance to be nerfed here in the very near future. So it could be bumped down the list not too long from now. And if so, I'll have a video out detailing its nerfs and where it will rank after it's nerfed with the current meta of long-range ARs. Of all the guns on this list, this one does have the hardest recoil to control. However, it does have the best TTK as well. But with that high TTK, not only do you get a hard recoil, you also get the slowest fire rate and the slowest bullet velocity. All that put together, essentially what that's saying is you need to learn to control the recoil on this gun. You really can't afford to miss very many shots, and you're definitely going to have to lead far away moving targets a little bit more with this one than you would the other ARs. While its level of difficulty to use is definitely a little bit higher than the other guns, if you're able to get the hang of it, this gun can dominate. Now, as far as the loadout goes, your muzzle, you can use the monolithic suppressor, your barrel, the XRK Zodiac, underbarrel, the Commando foregrip, 45-round mag, and as far as the optic goes, I'm sticking with the VOK for this one. Now let's take a look at the SMG portion of our long-range AR SMG type loadout. We're going to be looking at 3 SMGs here. All of these are going to be Cold War SMGs. The reason I'm looking at these 3 is because currently Cold War SMGs, and most Cold War weapons for that matter, have a faster movement speed, aim down sight movement speed, and firing moving speed than modern warfare weapons. It's mentioned that this is possibly going to be patched somewhere in the near future, but for now, if you want to be more mobile, it's best to stick with Cold War SMGs at the moment. So coming in at number 3, we have the LC-10. This is the gun that dropped around the same time as the FARA did. And again, this gun, like the FARA, was kind of brushed off as not being that great of a weapon. Here recently, it received a bullet velocity buff. And ever since then, this gun has seen a surge in popularity. It's got an extremely low recoil and actually has pretty good range for an SMG. A lot of people will actually use this as a sniper support at times instead of using a short-range AR. When looking at the TTKs for the LC-10 and the other 2 SMGs, the MAC-10 and the Bullfrog that we're going to be looking at, while the Bullfrog and the MAC-10 do technically have faster TTKs than the LC-10 does in anything under 16 meters, the difference is not that great. And in fact, anything between 16 to 25 meters, the LC-10 is considerably better than both of these other guns. Beyond 25 meters, you really shouldn't be using an SMG. So overall, this gun is pretty solid and is slowly becoming a favorite of mine. Now, if we're going to look at the attachments here, I actually don't have 2 of the attachments unlocked right now. Your muzzle, you are going to use the agency suppressor. Your barrel, you're going to want to use the 13.9 Task Force barrel, which is going to be this last barrel that I haven't unlocked yet. Your underbarrel, you're going to use the field agent grip. Ammo is going to be the 45-round mag. And then your stock, you're actually going to need to unlock the last stock, which is going to be the Raider stock. This is what's going to give you a little bit more mobility with this gun. Coming in at number 2 is going to be the MAC-10. This is the SMG that I primarily used ever since the Cold War integration happened. Very quick, very snappy, and the whole point of this SMG is mobility. It did recently receive a slight damage nerf in the last major update, but not enough to really knock it out of contention of being a viable SMG. It doesn't necessarily have the greatest range, but again, this is an SMG. The point of it is not to be using it at range. The point of this is to be using it up close. And with the MAC-10, you can be extremely mobile and run circles around your enemies. As mentioned previously, it's very comparable with the TTK of the Bullfrog and the LC-10 under 16 meters. However, just by a hair, this gun does have better TTKs than both of those. Now there are two kind of loadouts you can run with this gun. This one I have right here is definitely built more for speed and mobility. Your barrel is going to be the task force barrel, which is going to give you strafe speed and a little bit of damage range. Your underbarrel is actually going to be the striker grip. The striker grip is not going to really help you much with your vertical or horizontal recoil, but again, you're using it in this close range, so you're not going to have to worry about that as much. It's going to increase your hip fire accuracy and your movement speed. Your ammo is going to be the 53 round drum mag. You're going to have a laser, the Tiger Team Spotlight, which is going to increase movement speed and your aim walking movement speed. And your stock is going to be the Raider stock. One other way you can set up this gun if you'd like is to give it a little bit more range, is to remove the laser, switch out your underbarrel for the field agent grip, and for the muzzle use the agency suppressor. This will give you a little bit more increased range, and you will still have an advantage in mobility with this gun, however it just won't be as significant as the other loadout. Finally, our last SMG we're going to go over is the Bullfrog. The Bullfrog has recently been one of the more popular SMGs to use. A lot of that reason is because you can kit it out to serve different purposes. Some people try and kit this out to be very mobile like the MAC-10, or some people kit it out to have a little bit more range that would be just under what the LC-10 offers. The Bullfrog does have great mobility, it's got really good overall damage, and is definitely a killer up close, especially if you're able to land a couple headshots. The loadout for this one, the two main staples you're always going to run on this gun is the GRU suppressor muzzle and the 7.4 task force barrel. After that, you can really customize this gun in a bunch of different ways. I typically like to run the 65 round speed mag, the Spetsnaz grip, which is going to control your horizontal and vertical recoil, the Bruiser grip, which is going to increase your movement speed and your hip fire accuracy. And after that, a lot of people sometimes would like to run a no stock, which is going to give you a very great increase to sprint to fire time. Me personally, I don't like the iron sights on this gun, so I'll actually run an optic. And with that optic, I'll run the mill stop reflex. And those are going to be your loadouts for your long-range ARs and SMGs, if that's the combo you decide to go with. Our next video, we're going to go over the double AR meta, having one AR kitted out for long range and another one kitted out for short range. Obviously, the setups for the short-range ARs are going to be much different than they are their long-range counterparts. So we'll be sure to cover all that. I want to thank all you guys for stopping by, checking out the video. Don't forget, leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you found this video helpful. It's a really big deal for me in getting my videos out to everyone to see. So I appreciate any contribution you guys can leave me. Also, don't forget to check me out on Twitch. It's going to be twitch.tv/roughneck81. You can catch me streaming on there. We're still on the road to 200. We just hit 197 tonight, so we got 3 more to go. Also, check out the Facebook group, Roughneck81 Stream HQ. That's where you get all my stream updates and post about any videos or any events I have coming up. And also check out my Instagram, Roughneck81. Until next time, when I see you guys for part 2, you guys take it easy. Have a good rest of your day.